Welcome back to Designsmith. Please excuse me if my voice sounds a little funky. I am recovering from being sick all week, and that's the reason why I haven't posted any videos at all. But I'm feeling a lot better, so let's get going with weekly favorites. Before we get started, please subscribe to support the channel. Alright, so first up is this really cool Swiss Gang of Four poster. And I love the colors that are being used here. You don't really see a lot of yellow and orange together, and I've always loved those two colors next to each other. I understand why people don't use them. Yellow and orange can be very polarizing, but I think that it looks great, and I could be a little bit biased towards the colors, and I think it could work just as easily if the colors were swapped. This is obviously adhering to some kind of a grid. I'm not sure exactly what the grid is, but right here, this grid line, you can actually see this text aligns perfectly with this text right here. And let's see if it's aligning on the right side. It is. Very cool. So there's obviously some kind of a grid system going on. I really love when we have two blocks of type right next to each other and kind of have a blank area right here. It just adds really nice balance to it, even if one of them is dropping below the rest of the type. And I have talked about this in the past as well. This poster is a great example of not always having to keep the type fully on the page. Notice how of 4 actually bleeds off the page while still being legible. So overall, this is a very cool design made up of very simple shapes, colors, and layout. Alright, next up is another Swiss design poster, and this is New York Amsterdam pop-up show. I don't have all of the surrounding context, but I assume this is either a fashion show or an art show of some kind. And the first thing that jumped out to me was the type itself. It's very interesting how the typeface actually has these little cuts going on right here. I'm not sure if it's the design of the font or if the designer chose to cut off those pieces of type. But overall, I really love this layout, and I've always really liked the type inside of boxes here. I know that for the spacing inside of this box, a lot of designers would be tempted to maintain that spacing, but whoever designed this actually brought it down to a grid, so it's obvious that there's a grid happening here. And it's obviously using some kind of a formula for the sizing of the type, and I have made a video on this topic. If you haven't seen it, check it out right up here. And it also just occurred to me, I don't do a lot of pink posters, so maybe I should try that sometime. Alright, this next one up is also rooted in Swiss design principles, even though it's also using some serif typography. But we've got a really nice balance of this jumbled type, and it's a mix of serif and sans serif type. And I love the chaos that's going on here, but it's very organized chaos. I'm not exactly sure how they would have done this in 1988, but now you would use either the Pathfinder or Intertwine to achieve this. And it balances perfectly with the rest of the poster being very structured. You've got these 3 columns of type right here that obviously I could never read in a million years at this size. And I'm not sure if the original poster design has this, but I love how the type goes right up against the edge of the paper. It could be cropped, or it was originally designed to be that way. And I also love the color palette going on here. Red, black, and white is an awesome color palette. So overall, it's a very cool design, and if you'd like, I could do a tutorial showing you how to do this in Illustrator. Alright, next up is another red-ish white and black color palette design. This one has no typography, at least I don't think it does. This could be interpreted as ID. I'm not exactly sure what this is going for here, but I just know that from a visual perspective, I love this. This is minimalist design and minimalist art, and what they're doing is using very basic shapes to achieve this art. And it's very interesting to me that the circle is actually off-center from this pathway right here. And I'm sure that that's by design because it's not just a little bit off, it's actually a lot off. And it adds even more visual interest. You could easily take something like this and then create other things directly inspired by it. But doing something like this is an excellent way to get to know the Pathfinder. Alright, next up is this NL Design Netherlands poster, and this right up here looks like it says A&D, the Advertising and Design Club of Canada presents Design Netherlands. And it looks like this is from 2019, but what I love here is that it's making use of the entire poster itself, rotating the N and the L to make them completely horizontal across the page. And then it's using the space inside of those letters to communicate its messages. And again, just like in last week's video, I love posters that make really good use of sponsored logos. A lot of times they can look like an afterthought, but in this particular poster, it looks like it was planned to be there all along. I could easily see this concept being applied to so many different types of posters. And the kerning between these letters down here is just beautiful. Alright, this next one up is Esprit's graphic work from 1984 to 1986, and I knew this was Esprit even before I read it. That color palette is just unmistakable. I remember Esprit from when I was a kid. So many of the kids that went to my school had Esprit shirts, Esprit whatever, and I've always been in love with this color palette. But one of the many things that I love about this very minimalist design is using basic geometric shapes to create the letter E right here. And the use of the triangle right here for that third line is just so cool. Actually, I may do some kind of a poster series based around this color palette alone. And getting away from the color palette for just a second, I love the type that's going on down here. It's got this very stencil type of look. It's something that was very prominent in the 80s, and I've always loved the overall design of it. And it's also kind of a holy grail I've never seen inside of this book before, and I would love to see what all is inside. All right, next up is this really awesome 23 poster right here. I don't really know exactly what all is going on or what this is advertising, but the combination of numbers here and the use of negative space is just so awesome. This is something that's actually fairly easy to achieve in Illustrator, and if you'd like me to make a video showing how it's done, let me know down in the comments. And it's another great example of a poster that uses sponsored logos very effectively. Overall, it's a beautiful design. And it also inspired me to create this Michael Jordan 23 poster because I've been watching Save the Last Dance on Netflix recently. Alright, next up is the visual display of quantitative information poster by Edward R. Tufte. Is that right? T-U-F-T-E, it looks like it to me. And this is a very nice minimalist design, making great use of the blend tool in Illustrator. I've done a few videos on the blend tool, and I think I've even done something very similar to this in the past. But this is a great example that you don't need to take up the entire space of a poster, and you also don't really need anything surrounding it other than very minimalist type. As long as it simply communicates the message, then you're good. And that's what this poster is doing very well. Also, when you're using the blend tool, pay attention to stuff like this. On the top, the lines are actually thicker than the lines on the bottom. And I'll show you how this is done right here. So we'll just do something kind of similar, very crude type of mock-up. What you can do is double click on the top one right here. And we're gonna go over here to the width tool. And I'm just gonna go over here and make this a little bit thicker. And as you can see, it starts off thick on the top and then gradually goes thinner at the bottom. So overall, it's a very cool design, and it shows that you can use very simple elements to communicate your message. Alright, the next one up is a very awesome design. I've never quite seen anything like this before, but I just love the colors that are being used, and the idea of everything being shattered into pieces is just a really awesome concept. If I can figure out exactly how this is done and teach it effectively, then I may end up doing a tutorial on it because I just love it so much. And again, we've got a very large graphic on the page. It's almost taking up the entire poster, but then it's perfectly balanced with minimalist type in the bottom left corner. So we've got some great design principles here going on, most of it Swiss, and it's masterfully used. And again, I just love the colors. I love yellow, orange, and blue together. Beautiful. All right, the last one up is a poster that was designed for the brand identity for Helia. I haven't been able to find any information on this, so if you know what Helia is, please let me know down in the comments because I'm very curious. I'm not entirely sure how this effect was done, but I have a couple of theories. My first theory was the freeform gradient in Illustrator, but I do know that in 2015, which was when this poster was designed, that the freeform gradient tool wasn't available yet. And this also could have been achieved by a gradient mesh in Illustrator, or it could have been done in Photoshop with just simple brushes. Either way, it's an awesome piece of art that ties directly in with brand identity, and I love when those two things come together. And this says these posters were printed on 20th of April 2015 at 10:29. It was a rainy day and the temperature was 14 degrees Celsius, somewhat gloomy. The idea behind this concept is just so cool to me. I love it when a designer communicates their feelings through the actual poster that they're making. And I could see endless use of this type of application across many different designs. All right, here's everything that we took a look at today. I definitely want to know which one of these is your favorite down in the comments below. Also, let me know if you want me to do a tutorial based on any of these designs. I hope this was valuable to you and I hope it gave you some inspiration. If it did, please hit like and subscribe to support the channel. Thank you so much for watching and I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.